What's up, everybody? Today's question is, can you game on an FX 8350 in 2018 playing World of Warcraft with the new patch Battle for Azeroth, the new expansion that's coming out? The new pre-patch is out 8.0.1, and I'm playing it right now on an FX 8350, and I'll tell you what, for such an old chip, damn, it's amazing. Alright, so what we're talking about today is the FX 8350. Is it possible the game on it? Is it relevant still? If you were to build a computer, or do you still even have one? Do you even have it overclocked? If you're not overclocking an FX 8350 at this day and age, man, I don't know what you're doing. There's so much potential that's still in these old CPUs, but they're still amazing. So what we're doing right now is we're running around. This is Ironforge. This is an old alt character of mine. So if you're seeing this right here, don't say nothing about it. He's only a level 2. I'm not showing you on any of my big boys what this is. If you want to see what my big boys are, go and check out the rest of my channel, because that's all I do is play World of Warcraft, baby. Um, Getting back to the video though, we're going to go ahead and turn off the keyboard cams here so that you guys can see how many FPS we're getting, the stability of it, what it looks like when we're running around and transitioning into things, and what my experience has been playing the game so far with this CPU. We'll get into what I do have for a graphics card here in just a second, as soon as I figure out which one of these guys I do have to turn off, which is going to be this one here, and I do believe that it will be this one here. Is that the right guy? Nope. It'll be this guy here. So we'll go ahead and shut that down, transition our frames, and now you guys will be able to see what kind of FPS that we're getting. My latency is a little high due to the fact that I'm playing on a West Coast server. I live in the very far East Coast of Canada, and I have this running from a main router to another router. That's a whole another topic of discussion, but my MS is just a little tad high, but I don't have any lag at all. We're streaming at 142 FPS. We're playing on a simple itty-bitty video card because this is a budget build, an FX 8350. Why in the hell are we going to go and throw some amazing GPUs into something that we were trying to save a bunch of money on when we put it together to see if we could play World of Warcraft stably? So we bought an NVIDIA GTX 1050 2 gig video card. It's only 2 gigs. That's what we're playing on here. So I stream World of Warcraft. I play at over 100 frames consistently. My settings right now are in the mid. We're not maxed out, I don't believe. We're running at 4. Everything else that I have, though, is on high or good or ultra. I don't have the slider bar turned all the way up because that just turns your projected textures and things that I don't really need to be on right now. For our advanced settings, we do have triple buffering off, and reduced input lag is disabled because we want to have the best that we can. For FPS, we don't want any type of lagging. We want to hit the button, we want to cast a spell. For our background and foreground, we have them both disabled. That way we are able to get the most out of the graphics card when it's able to provide it. Now when you get into 40 mans and it's 40 on 40, you're going to dip down in probably to 30 range and 40 range in frames. Mind you that you have a little bit older of a CPU. You have a graphics card that's then starting to be bottlenecked at that point, along with the CPU, and you're getting 30 frames. Now, what does 30 frames look like on this playing this? It's very stable. You really aren't going to see a huge difference. This right now is a console killer. It plays way smoother than any Xbox One or any PS4 does. The colors that it has and that we're able to get, and we're running on 3 screens right now, and we're running 2 different cams, mind you. And right now our CPU usage is going to be at 68%, 71% we're bouncing around to. The CPU V core, we're dropping from 1.4552 volts to 1.42 volts, so we do have a little bit of V-core droop that's on there. Our VRMs on our board. This is an old Gigabyte 78 LM2 USB 3 R2, so it's the newest of the newest version of these old boards. It doesn't even have a UEFI BIOS on it. It's the old blue screen. But the VRMs on this board do have heat sinks and all that good stuff on it, and they're only running at 51, 52 degrees C right now. The temperature inside of my case is 28 C, but I do have 14 fans in there though, so it's almost like sitting in an open air configuration, the way that we're able to put so much air onto the boards and vent the heat off the VRMs and around the bottom of the CPU and where the CPU cooler is attached to the base of the board at. And then on the very back of the board, I actually have another fan that's mounted on the very back of the board, so I'm actually cooling the back of the board too, and the VRMs and where the CPU is. Due to the fact that 8350s draw such a high amount of power, that you have to have the cooling all over the board. It's not just on the CPU itself. If you can't cool down the VRMs that's on the board, you're going to have problems with thermal throttling then. Or you're going to have like a 970 or a 990 chipset. And even having a 970 or a 990 chipset, you're still going to be running into heat because the FX8350s draw a minimum TDP of 125 watts. When you overclock these bad boys to 4.7 or 5 gigahertz, if you could push it, if you've got the cooling, you're going to start getting some big heat margins on there, and more power equals more thermal, and you have to be able to get rid of the heat. So right now with the setup that we're running beautifully. We're nice and cool. I don't have any type of lag issues. I don't have any game skips. I don't have any type of problem with loading in and out of screens or going anything like that. I'm not even running on USB 3.0. I'm running on the old SATA 2 connections for an SSD, which means I'm only getting 60% out of my SSD. So loading screens in World of Warcraft, they're still almost, even though I'm only getting 60%, they're almost non-existent. The only loading screen that I ever really see is when I'm loading in a Dalaran, and that might be about for 2 seconds or a second and a half, maybe even 3 seconds. It just depends on where I'm coming from and what I'm coming out of and going into that. As far as raids and raiding goes on these settings, if you're playing PvE in this game, and you're only running one screen, I would say, and you're running this graphics card, I do have 14 gigs of 1600 megahertz RAM. I don't have anything crazy in this, and it's only 120 gig SSD on a 550 watt Cooler Master Bronze PSU. So that's basically my setup. It's not no monster setup. It's not a ton of money. It's about $600 or $700 ordered offline, a couple of days everything came here, I put it together, and it's a console killer. In 2018 I've had this computer for about 3 months now. I have no complaints out of it, zero. The brand new expansion for World of Warcraft Battle for Azeroth is here. I'm playing it. It's beautiful. I'm outside of Origima or Ironforge right now because we're on Alliance. And we're still pulling 100 frames right outside. Now, if you go inside, or you're going to get up into the 180s, 200, stuff like that, and we're streaming, so add another probably 20 FPS to it because we're streaming. It's knocking down the processor power a little bit. But, I mean, this is absolutely more than playable. You know, your goal when you're building a computer is to hit 60 stable at 1080. Well, we're way more than 60 stable, I'll tell you that. And I'm playing on 2 monitors that are 1080 and then a bigger one that is only, it's not 1080 capable. It is an HD TV is what it is, but it's only 720. So we're playing in 2 different rendering aspects, and we're using the onboard graphics as well as the GPU. And FX8350, even on this lower end board, completely fine as long as you've got fans all over the board. Now, I did have problems. That's why I have so many fans pulling cold air in and then pulling the air off, and then I have fans aimed at the board and all the VRMs and all that. My case is still nice and clean. It looks beautiful inside of it. I have tons and tons of LED lights and all glass on the side that I've changed it up because, you know, you build computers, this is what you do, you kind of get into it. You'll start with this little thing, and then it turns into that little thing, and before you know it, 3 months have went by, and you have a fully custom computer, and you think to yourself, I'm never going to take that apart, man. I'm going to put this together, and that's going to be awesome. Well, maybe some people might do that, but people that are true computer enthusiasts, you all the time having your shit apart, and you're all the time pushing the limits of it. You're all the time messing with videos or uploading videos or downloading videos or playing a game, or you want to have, the lowest latency or the highest FPS. And look, there's another guy coming in checking me out here. You want to have the best of the best all the time. And I'm not saying that the FX 8350 is the best of the best. By far, is it nowhere near like an i7 or the Ryzen 7s right now. But for the money, hell yeah, this right actually is outperforming a Ryzen 3 and some of the older i7s. I'm Cinebenching somewhere in the 840s and 850s. It depends on what it is that you're trying to push out of this chip. These chips are way more capable than 5 gigahertz. Right now I'm only running this chip at 4.4 because this is my everyday use. I'm not trying to get a shit ton of performance out of it, and I feel like that there is still room. So if maybe something happens within my game or streaming and I do need a little bit more FPS or a little bit more oomph in there, I could go ahead and up it another 200 or 300 megahertz and get that little bit more that's out of it. But I'm comfortable right now running at the thermal margins that I'm at, especially with the FPS that we're at. I believe that everything is more than sufficient. So if you have one of these chips and you haven't overclocked it, please look into a how-to video on how to overclock your chip with your motherboard. Make sure that your motherboard is overclocking capable. Other than that, man, it's worth it. Yeah, hell yeah. Pick it up for $100. Pick you up another motherboard for $100. Pick you up another one of them cheap coolers for $20 or $30. It's an aftermarket cooler, and put it on there. Get you an extra fan to point at the board, and you can't beat it. I'm telling you, unless you're going with a water-cooled system, then you're still going to want to get a couple extra fans and put them at the board. Water-cooled's cool just for the CPU. We're talking about the VRMs because the CPU sucks so much juice through them little MOSFETs, that it heats the board up. And you want to cool the board down. So having fans push air on the board, it's pushing it out. Then having a couple of fans that's pushing that heat out, suck that immediate heat out with some fans in the front, putting the cold air in, you're going to have no problems all the time keeping your board cool, even if you're rendering 4K videos for an hour or 2 hours at a time, or wherever it is that you're trying to do. So, getting back into turning our keyboard cams and all that stuff back on, we'll do a little bit of running around here and let you guys do your own determination for what it is that you guys would like to do with this chip. And if you don't have this chip, well, you should probably build something newer than what you're seeing today for the money. In other words, if you don't already have this chip and you're thinking about building a computer, for $30 more, you could probably build something that you could upgrade only smaller components as time surpasses, so that you're not rebuilding or buying new computers over and over again. You're only upgrading a smaller component along the way. Would I recommend you building this right now? Sure, if you had an opportunity to pick this chip up for $100, you could pick you up a cheap motherboard with it and a cheap power supply, a cheap SSD, and that kind of stuff. Get you a GTX 1050 or a 1050 Ti, or get you a GTX 1060. Those are even great bunnies, great for the bang for the buck right now. Personally, I would pick it up. I'm gaming on it. I think it's beautiful. I think that it's going to last me probably for another good year of gaming. My graphics card might be the next thing that I'll have to upgrade. I'll probably go into a GTX 1060 after this. That'll be a 6 gig card, and that'll be more than compatible to help my old dated CPU keep up to date with what it is that I'm trying to do with the streaming and rendering videos and doing the multiple cam setups and the multiple screens and all that, and trying to get the resolution scale at what I want without getting a huge dip in my FPS, so that I don't visually have any type of effect on my gameplay. It's not bothering me for playing it, and I feel like the smoothness is there, so that if you want to transition, from going offensively to defensively, you can change your computer around, you can do whatever it is, and nothing is lagging. You're not getting a dot, 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 dot. And if you're playing wirelessly, dude, don't play wirelessly. Get wired. Try to get wired. If you are playing wirelessly, get as close to your router as you can. Try to game on 5K if it's possible for you to even game on your 5G. I said 5K, I meant 5G, 2.4. There's so much packet and data loss. Like, you think that you're hitting your number 2 button and casting a spell, you might hit it 2 or 3 times before that packet and data loss is actually registered, sent through your home network, goes through the main hub, and then sent through all the internet lines, gets to World of Warcraft servers. World of Warcraft registers it and pings it all back through all that to let your computer know that that's happened. So I would try to go through wired as much as I can if you're gaming on wireless. That's my recommendation. But FX8350 in 2018, baby, yes sir, absolutely, it is possible. Should you build one? I did. Should you? I don't know. That's up to you. That's your question. I love AMD. I'm not really an Intel fan. AMD, it's 5-6 years old. It's still doing a wonderful job. When I'm indoors and I'm not doing much, I'm pulling as much as 300 frames. When I'm getting 80 people and everything's moving and I'm maxed out and I'm streaming, I'm getting about 30 to 40 frames. If I'm just running around in regular PvP settings and it's 15 on 15, I'm getting 150 and 200. Way more than what I ever need on 3 screens running 2 cams while streaming. So, do I think it's worth it? The FX8350 is more than enough. Still, check it out for yourself. You be the judge.